Welcome to the Out There channel, live stream 70. So, looks like I might be solar again. I think Robert didn't go to bed till about 5 hours ago. So, yeah, I'll just cue some music and do some checks. Make sure that the audio's working and you hear the music. Then we know that there's no glitches on the Google side of things. We've got some problems already. Alright, looks like it might be working. Hey John and Renee, welcome to the stream. Crazy volume. Noise cancellation sort of, if it doesn't pick up the sound of the noise of the computer, it makes the volume of the music go crazily loud instead of just equalizing it out. It's a bit buggy, some of the software. So what graphics have we been through here? So just kill the music. So the basic rules of the stream is just have a bit of fun and no swearing and trolling, of course. So I'll just switch to the desktop. It's been a busy day, really. Catching up with everything that's going on the web overnight and preparing for what I'm going to talk about tonight. So we've got a few things to cover, of course, always. First of all, still a lot of talk about Bob Lazar, and I come across an interesting article which sort of debunks him pretty well, I think, and I will talk about it. And I will talk about gravitational waves and what they are, theory about behind it and why there's problems with it, and of course the whole Bob Lazar story hinges on space time and gravitational waves. So yeah, so that sort of is the main reason that I'm put off by his story, because it's very theoretical, modern day cult theory. Because there's a lot of people opposing all this Big Bang stuff, and I've talked about it previously. So yeah, I'll just kind of cover some of that. Plus, we'll have a look at some UFO stuff as well, videos. So let me just organize my screens here. So we got the counters working. Looks like it's, why is that one higher? Seems to self-adjust the height for some reason. It's all right though. Thanks for the like, John. I guess that was you. And Jamal, he normally joins us, but he may not know that I started early. So what are these guys saying here? Yes, someone's going to make a lot of money from him, though. But did you listen to Richard Dolan's thing today? I posted it on the socials for people to have a look and see what you think of it. I thought Dolan was being less critical and sort of sucky-uppy, if you ask me. And normally he's quite good to look at the facts and say, yeah, well, something doesn't quite add up there, you know. But he's had the pleasure of seeing the full movie, unlike the rest of us poor buggers that have to pay your $15 to watch it, of course, instead of it being free online, which is my bugbear about it all. There's no reason why it all can't be free, paid by advertising. And if people want to support him, they can donate or buy T-shirts or mugs or buy it on DVD or whatever. Nowadays, I prefer to have it on hard drive. I don't know about you guys, but I used to buy a lot of DVDs, and it used just to fill up all the shelf space, and the room size got smaller and smaller. So in the end, my mate also found the same, and he boxed them all up and just gave them all away in the end, and ripped them all to hard drive, which you're not meant to do, but everybody does it, of course. You know, that's the way of the future: solid state memory and hard drives and all that. So yeah, if they think pirating is bad now, just wait till that takes off. You know, the new technology just gets better and better. The only way to combat pirating is to live with it and just produce something that's even better than what people have already pirated. So say 360 view, 3D experience, 3D experience of a whole movie. Imagine if you had Star Wars in 3D and you could turn any way and see the spaceships in 3D and any angles and stuff flying past you. So that's how the future will probably end up being. You know, it won't be 4K; it'll be something like 100K definition and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, I can remember when people were pirating stuff on cassette tapes. You know, they'll you know, on spectrums and 8-bit micros, and now it's just progressed on to other formats. And what happens is everyone dumps all those cassettes, and they have to build up their collection again, and so on and so on. So yeah, really, stuff is just too expensive now. You know, what was the last DVD I bought? It was like $100 or something ridiculous when it first came out. It was just ridiculously expensive. I suppose you can pick them up now for $10 and $20, but still, uh, you know, it's just all crazy as far as I'm concerned. There's no reason why all media can't be like on the cloud and it's paid for by advertising, and you charge the advertisers a lot more than what they're getting away with now, and everything will be fine. So yeah, so Richard Dolan put out something today. with an interview with Corbell. So I'll just probably search on him, Olin. He comes up in the searches. He must be popular. So he's put this one here, Bob Lazar. So everyone's going to profit from talking about Bob, of course. So I'll just post the link to his video tab there. And if you haven't watched already, do so. I'm sure everybody's gotten subbed by now and getting alerts to his new uploads. So that came out 9 hours ago. So yeah, stay on it, I guess, in the comments. Have a watch of it. But I probably won't preview it or anything. Yep, LPs, vinyl. Yep. Yep, and even that won't be good enough digital. It'll be something better comes out probably. What's that guy's name from the Beatles? Paul McCartney. He was the one that was leading the way with 7 and 8 speaker systems, and he was recording all his stuff for surround sound. So he was like the cutting edge of his time. And you can buy his recordings now from his band to be able to play on your DVD. Well, home theater. Home theater has to decode it. It's got a special format for the number of speakers, but yeah, it's definitely progressed even in that time that he did those recordings. Now they're talking about overhead speakers, so that means you're going to have overhead mics as well, I guess. So when the helicopter flies towards you, you can hear it flying and hovering above you in the seat in the theater. Can't remember what it was called now. Dolby, probably have a certain name like AX or something like that. So yeah, Anox or something like that. Seems to ring a bell. I said 3D is going to be the way to go, and proper full surround sound, so it sounds like you can feel the vibrations and all that sort of stuff. And of course, all that's going to be lots of masses of data, and it's going to require a lot of solid state and bigger hard drives. Movies of 2 gigabytes compressed won't be big enough. It'll be like 400 gigabyte movies and stuff like that. So yeah, I can remember I was buying 300 megabyte hard drive not that long ago for about $300. Now you can pick up 4 terabits for the same kind of money or less. Yeah, 5.1 is gone. There's 7.1, and then there's something else. It's always changing. So let's see where I begin. So I've got a few tabs queued here, and this is the one that comes from Secureteam. So I'll just play. I'll just get him out the way with first. Let's see. Talk about his video. It's ongoing, eh? So I had a fun chat with a guy on Facebook, and I should bring that up too. That he's calling me an idiot and stuff, but in the end, he apologized and realized that I did actually know something that was worth knowing. So I posted some of the chat from him, and he sort of lost me when he was starting to talk about liver growing legs and little men shooting arrows from his thing. And I said, it seems that you only sensed all these UFOs and strangeness when you're in your house, and it could be that you're suffering from EMF exposure, and it's maybe hallucinating and stuff like that. So yeah, so yeah, I posted up some comments here. That was on a Facebook group. Yeah, that's the images he posted. Very high quality, grainy, and these objects were moving slowly across the screen. And I said to him in the next comment, oh, gone too far. In the next comment, I said those are just bugs on cheap camera with slow shutter speed. Google slow shutter speed, rolling shutter, and motion blur camera artifacts, and then he calls me an idiot. And I said, name calling really wins argument. I guess you're experts. And he said, it just shows me you actually have no effing clue. So we took a few more pages, of course, back and forth. And then he gives me this comment here, which is just way wacky for me to get my head around. What? Hey, man, I'm not, what's it saying? Doing this personally, okay? This is my apartment. I noticed some weird shit like coffee table shooting tiny arrows at me. So I started investigating and found, and then down here he says, this is a piece of liver that grew appendages and tried climbing out of my crock pot. So, yeah, I don't know what to make sense, head or tail of that one. I don't know what you guys would think about that one. But I was talking about crazy UFO people. I just wonder if he's seeing so-called little aliens that with little arrows. And I suppose it's possible. We don't know, we can't say aliens are always going to be the same size as us. They could be insect size. They could be microbes even. So yeah. So what do you actually call an alien species? But if you got something fine arrows at you, wouldn't you be able to at least video it or click the arrows and say, here's all the arrows that were shot from a coffee cup? So yeah, I was just trying to be nice to him and invited him along to talk about it and show us more of his videos online, and we can sort of analyze it together. So wherever he shows up, I don't know. So we got now Secureteam. Has he put out something new again? Looks like it. I haven't looked at that one yet. Yeah, so if you take a lot of drugs and stuff, I don't know if he was or not, they can do that to you, especially if you got certain genetic makeup. They even know for sure that even regular pot smoking can cause hallucinations if you got the right genes for it to trigger. So yeah, you just got to be aware. I personally don't like to take painkillers even when I'm in pain, because I know how badly it affects me. So yeah, I'd rather live with the pain, and basically I've got a really high pain threshold now. So apparently they stick a needle in me and I don't sort of jump out my skin. So yeah, I suppose you're pretty aware of that, John, that the drugs do have terrible side effects and extra health problems related to them, of course. And if I come off them again, I actually start feeling better. At the moment, I take high blood pressure and cholesterol and insulin and all these other ones. And the doctor says you got to take them, you got to take them. But sometimes I think the statin ones, which they talk about having side effects, can cause muscle aches and amplify muscle pain, which kind of sort of works with my back pain. So is it related? I don't know. Should I come off them? Should I stay off them? So often, sometimes I come off a couple of weeks and then go back on them, of course. And when I come off them, I actually feel better. So I don't know. I think the blood pressure ones do help though, because the problem with one of my eyes is you got arteries that are really fine, and if you get high blood pressure, they can burst and it bleeds into your eye, and it forms like scabs. I can't remember what they call it now. Starts with M, I think. They have all these scientific names for eye problems, but yeah, it can make you go blind if you're not careful. So having lower blood pressure will protect the artery walls from getting too much pressure and exploding, because you're talking about microscopic stuff. So yeah, unless you get older, more health problems, of course. So yeah, but smoking it, is it? You say you smoke it, so smoking is really a bad thing to do, don't you think? So I've had lots of family members suffer from smoking and died, of course, from it related to it. Uh, it's all right if you take it and probably biscuits and stuff, maybe, but yeah, I still think you got to be careful how much you take, and yeah, probably vamping is a bit better, but still, you're still sucking in chemicals. You know what I mean? So yes, pros and cons. So let's get on with the UFO stuff anyway. So I didn't really analyze it completely, but this is the one he put out just after we finished the stream last time. He always seems to put out stuff roughly when I'm going to do a stream. So we're talking about a Lightning TR3B again. I'm not sure what that is for. A fill-in to make it 10 minutes, I guess, or whatever. No, Thanksgiving. Oh yeah, that's right. His alien turkey. So we're talking about this thing here that he claims to be a triangle craft. And to me, it just looks like a smudge, you know, like a maybe even a break in the clouds here. Looks like a fluffy cloud layer coming around. Just looks square because of the low res. But let's have a look at the video if he plays it. So there's other dark clouds here.
Lightning, so check it out.
So it's a good lightning storm. We used to see that in Brisbane in Australia, like that. Ones go right across the sky. Don't get them like that in New Zealand though. All the ones seem to come straight down to the ground. Now, if that was an object in the sky, I would have think a lightning bolt would probably hit it, and then it would sort of pass through it and go towards the ground. So he's added some green filters on here. Let's see. Just roll back a bit there.
Different colors just to give us the best look. And from what I can gather about this is that without a doubt, it appears that this is some sort of strange object, or maybe it's just a cloud shaped like a...
So there you can see already that cloud sort of changed shape and looks like it's fading away there. See that? That can't be a craft because you can see that it's definitely changed. I reckon if we slow it right down, say half the speed, I'll just get rid of his sound again. Let's play it without the filters. I think it's just a cloud. Looking at it now, I thought it might have been a smudge on the lens. as well, but what's that there? I can see a shape forming there. Looks like a reflection. Is that reflection there? Can you see that on yours? Are they filming it through a car window? So that could be another possibility. See, there's some strange pixelization happening there. Still going too fast though. See, that lightning bolt missed it, and that one touched it, or looked like it did, but didn't actually go bounce off it. See, it disappeared then on one frame. It just disappeared again. So where's it gone now? So it's gone now. Can't see it. Where is it now? No black craft there. And there's a blob there now. Look, blob, a little blobby bit. It makes me wonder if anyone actually puts his videos in slow motion and looks themselves. But to me, that looks just like a cloud that's sort of changing shape. And we're only talking about a few seconds here. Look, it's gone. I see it made the papers though. See if I can get back out of it. Did the screen go alright? Because sometimes it corrupts. Yeah, it's gotten really big. Yeah. So, what do you think of that one? Have you seen that one, John? So, yeah, there was a report that came out about it. Let's see if I can find it. UFO struck by lightning, a bizarre video. So already he's going to get some more subs from this because they talk about. The thing is, he actually said it could be a cloud, and then he sort of dismisses it. That's sort of like a subliminal thing, like hey, that looks like a balloon, but it can't be. You know, it sort of puts people's mindset off. You know, it's sort of like a trick. Buy this fizzy drink because it's good for you, but they do say it has a lot of mercury in it. But don't worry about that. Yeah, bizarre footage. Video captured on November 22nd. Triangle objects. So I thought I might just use some of their screen grab because they probably would have had the video and see if it's actually a pure triangle shape. Yeah, we got that USB noise again. Then it pops up. So it's like it's sort of dismounting when it shouldn't be. It's ever since I've upgraded the Windows 8.1. It never used to do that. I think they changed the driver. So yeah, we got only you watching, John. So here's the cut, and straight away you can see it looks a bit pixelated, but I'm not seeing how they can say that's a triangle craft. It looks like a whispery cloud going around here. Looks like some clouds coming down here, but it's pixelated. and a bit of a cloud coming out this way. Let's see if we can put it in the editor. And then we'll look at the second part. What if Jamal's going to come on? It's a bit strange not to see him on a Sunday. Unless he goes out, I guess. It's taking a while to load. Here we go. So what do you say? Watching? You think it's a cloud too? So let's confirm it for sure. If it's a solid craft, it would have nice solid edges on it. Even if it was partly cloaked, one side shown, it should have one solid side. You know what I mean? So you always got to be critical thinking, as I always say in my hashtag, question everything. So this is changing the brightness, and as we go up in brightness, you can see it's getting more washed out, and you start to see it looks like foggy bits coming down. Looks more solid, less solid, I mean, than it starts off being. So let's do color swaps so you can get something popping out. I'll probably show up the pixels more than anything, I think. Yeah. But this allows us to change whites that look almost similar. So you can see here, even here, we've got some sort of red happening. See that? So that means what we thought was all the same color, blackness or white of the cloud, is not. You can see that there's a slightly different shade of cloud color, and you can see straight away behind here, it's looking less like a solid craft again. You start to see the edges of the cloud coming up here, and you're also getting another bit that's sort of coming down over top of it here, another cloud layer. We keep playing around with it. See that looks pretty good. Definitely different shades of color going on in the image, and straight away we start to see that it's definitely not a triangle. It's sort of like a fuzzy, wavy outline to it here. Let's see what else we can get popping out. Definitely an overlaying cloud here. So even though it's low res, it's sort of pointing towards it being a cloud. And as you saw in the various frames, that the cloud shape changed and it sort of hid that bit. So if we went further along in the video and took our own snaps, you'll see that was only a blob left here. The rest of this sort of vanished because this cloud's coming up this way with the storm. The purple bit here. I don't think it's worth spending too much time on, personally. But what did they say down here? See, they've done another snap here. We can see where it's faded. Like I said, that cloud was moving upwards. See this dark cloud here was moving up over it. I suppose there's other black bits on the video too. Well, there's a light down here. But if you go at the top of the video here, it looks almost like the same blackness happening on that image here. Look, that looks like the same blackness on the cloud as it is down here. So yeah, I think it's just amazing what rubbish people put out. And what's worse is they always use this one here, which I've debunked so many times now. It's just a space shuttle tile that broke off Colombia, I think it was, and the astronauts were told to take a photograph of it so they could identify where it come from. Because remember, they were have to be careful because it would melt the aluminium or aluminum, as Americans say, the structure of the space shuttle as it comes down because it gets so hot. So they had to make sure it wasn't in a crucial place, like on the nose cone or something like that, or underneath where the wing gets hot. If it was further up near the side of the craft, then it wouldn't really matter too much. So I think there was some comment said down here somewhere. Let's have a look. There we go. Another famous YouTube channel, Secureteam 10, also analyzed. I like the word how they say analyzed. It suggested the object could be a cloud, yes. But eventually concludes, I really think we have something strange here. Yeah, so he sort of puts words into people's heads. So there was no other, they didn't ask any other debunker to have their say on it, did they? Which is really bad. What did I just close down? I thought it was closing this one. Oh, that was right. So it was Dolan one, wasn't it? So let's close that one. That's why I pinned the tabs so I don't accidentally close them. What was this one? I'll just try to think. Oh yeah, this one I'm going to talk about Area 51. I'm just going to point out some things. So this is the next bit in the video. Oh, that's what I was playing. Secureteam video, wasn't it? I have to go back to it. And play the rest of it. And just explain it. Hello, we got 3 watching now. Why is the counter not updated? Don't tell, I've got some glitches happening again. Watching, yep, well done. So he's still going on about this cloud. What was that one from? Okay, so he's using the same one. So there's the space shuttle tile. That's another image from Google. And this one looks a bit suspect. But on here it says bird. So yeah, it could be. But what's this up here? Is that someone's pasted the image and he forgot to cut that bird thing out? That kind of looks like a cutout, a cookie cutter effect there. And just other random images he's got here, is it? Bob Lazar. Hello, we went up to 6, 8 watching. Oh, what happened there? So here we got joining us. Did we see some trippy stuff? Nope. Hello, insert pie. You must like your pies. Right. So we're just looking at some claims of UFO. I mean, Secureteam. So here again, I've talked about these before. This is caught in a video of something going up, and he's saying it's a TR3B. But you can see here, even in the enhancements, that it looks like a 3-dimensional image, and it looks crinkly, or not very straight, solid, like edges on it. And really, it's again another solar. Where is it? It's just a solar balloon, which I put on my social page here. Some photographs. So it's one of these here. As you can see here, it's got the same crinkly reflective edge on it to those pictures that he's got up here. If you look carefully, it's got that sort of crinkly reflected edges on it. I think my mouse pointer goes in the wrong place for the software, so I think it's a couple inches out. But if you look at the middle one here, you can see how the sun's reflecting off the edge there. I could zoom in more, I guess. Let's cut it out and just prove to you that it doesn't look like a TR3B at all, and it's got none of those iron engines that they talk about underneath. It's just made from a trash bag, believe it or not. Anyone can make them up. You can find instructions online. Mostly school kids do it. But you can see here how small it is, and I've zoomed it up here, but it's still very hard to see. But you can see here is the crinkly edges that you're getting, and there's no engines in the corners. You can see here it's not very straight edges. If I put it through the proper editor, which one is it? That one. Okay. Jonah, you're back again, Renee. How's it going? So, if you plotted a triangle next to that, you see it's not a perfect triangle. You can see it's a bit off. Quite a lot off, actually. It's not a perfect equilateral triangle. And let's make the walls a bit thicker. So, yeah, I think that sort of concludes it. In fact, can we even get a straight edge on it? I don't think so. You can see how sort of squiggly it goes. So, yeah. So he's just BSing everybody still, unfortunately. I think he might have a video, has he? Or is it just photographs? As Hurricane Irma. Anti-gravity UFOs. So, yeah. Silent black triangles was photographed. You can see here even how more bent it is in the back end of it, because the air pressure is pressing on it. You can see here it's more straight. As it rotates around, it's got the air pressure coming this way, and of course it's drifting off this direction, isn't it? And you can see that he doesn't do it. Oh, there we go. There's that one. You see here the back side of it's now pushed in because it's plastic. So what do you think of that one? Kiva, don't talk to me anymore. since I debunked UFO Man. This one was what I talked about probably 4 months ago. This was actually a hoax. It was actually a kite, and it had laser pointer that shoots a beam down. They had it sort of trigger come on remotely, and it just had LEDs in the corner. It's a well-known fake, and yet he still keeps using it. Is he going to show the full video where it's going to shoot the laser? More than likely. So there we go. Turns on a laser beam, which is just a laser pointer that you use in high schools, sort of thing. So yeah, not really worth going over that again. But that's totally debunked, all of that. And we'll have a look at the next one. He's only just put that out. So what's he claiming in this one? Anonymous moon photo. He's out of state without a mic. What smartphones and tablets don't have mics built into them? Is that him talking about it? He's not talking. Oh, he's definitely got no mic. Hi guys. Oh, don't listen to the music. This video started it all. He's a good storyteller, isn't he? Secureteam. This is one of the videos he deleted. Parley photo. Large moon pipe. Oh no. That's been debunked many times. Okay. We're talking about what photographs taken back in 1970, 40 odd years old. Now the quality of cameras were pretty rubbish. Any low res stuff formed all these strange shapes, which now they've debunked with HD images on the same craters. Unfortunately, it's just a matrix. And wonder what that was called. I'm pretty sure it's got some HD footage of that crater now. No doubt Scott Brando will be onto it. I'm not sure if those guys have looked at the video yet. So what's he put out today? UFO interest. He's normally onto these moon ones, so it's always best to check out what he's saying about it. So he's talking about Bob Lazar stuff as well. I don't know how many times the fake video has been used to promote UFO documentaries. Never forget the backstory. Bob Lazar, Area 51 and Flying Saucers 2018 official trailer. So what's the backstory on it? So I haven't actually seen the official trailer of Corbell's movie, but obviously this is one of them, is it? Right. Here it goes. There's the UFO up here, very small. Original source from documentary. Fake UFOs. Which means it's CGI, of course. Oh, here it is. CGI. That circle looked like it had missed it, actually, didn't it? And the highlight circle wasn't even close to the object. I don't know how they did that. So what's it saying here? Hosted by Roger Moore. Oh, well, you can go and check that out yourself anyway. It's on UFO Interest. That was the one with the so-called UFO crash in Russia, which they said was faked, but like the alien autopsy video. So obviously some of the other stuff in it was also faked for the drama, or what do you want to call it. So I'm not sure which one that's talking about. Ice crystals and clouds which bend the light coming from the moon in a special way, creating a halo image. As we found out, a halo was like that shadow off the plane on the cloud that we looked at last time. That must be this one here. It's creating a halo. Okay, that makes sense. So yeah, not much there on Scott's page yet about Secureteam, but no doubt he'll be talking about this one. So we'll see what happens next live stream, I guess, see what comes out. So that brings us to the other stuff that we're going to talk about. Oh yeah, we're finished with that one. So yeah, I think we're now on to Bob. Oh yeah, remember Bob has his own web business selling nuclear products. Well, this is his website, so we'll post a link to it. So I did post it on my socials. Sorry, we lost a few people. So yeah, what's interesting though, you can buy glowing soap or radioactive soap, like Madame Curie, I guess. Good for your skin. So yeah, He's got these bars you can buy on his website called uranium, plutonium, radon, and what's that one? Therium. Or you can buy a gift pack of all four. Not cheap though, $7.50 US. Glowing soaps. I suppose they're sort of novelty, but I don't know how safe it is. I remember years in the past, I used to think radiation was good, and they used to radiate themselves and drink radiated water and all that sort of stuff. So it must have caused a few people to lose their teeth in here, I'd say. Yeah, they might say, "Oh, yeah, it's safe," but you end up using it, and then another 10 years later, say, "Oh, actually, the soap had this chemical in it." And it makes you sterile. So yeah, that's his website there if you want to go and check it out. He's got lots of other products on there. A radioactive paint. If you go to his main page, I think that must be it. It looks like a web page out of the 1970s, if you ask me. It's not very well visually nice to look at. Looks like the early web pages, when HTML was first invented. So, yeah, for a clever man, could at least hire someone to do a better website. So, yeah, it sells all sorts of things, including meteorites and microscopes and radiometers and crystal radios from like you used to get in the old days, which pick up AM, and rocket engines, of course, which will be on that movie, because Corbell will show you on his rocket bike or rocket go-kart, I think is another one he does. And also he was working on a rocket car, I think. They're still here, cool. So yeah, it's got one of these things that spin around when the sunlight hits it. They're pretty cool to watch, those things. What they call them, radiometers. But he's also got radioactive detection. Where's that one? Up here somewhere. You can get anti-radiation pills, which is like potassium iodine. Where is it? Radiation detection. Here we go. And so, we're looking at AliExpress, where you can get one for $50. He's selling one for a mere $149. Although it might be better, I'm not too sure, but still, it doesn't look much different than their one. Guide counter. And then he's got one for gas detection, radon gas detector, 179. Whew. And alpha radioscope, optical Geiger counter. So what does it do? Sort of light up when radiation hits it? I don't know, maybe. If you got lots of money to burn, I guess you could buy one and have a play with it. What's it say? Something for 10 to 15 minutes before viewing. All right, so you hold it up and then you look in the eyepiece by the sounds of it. I think it would be really cool to take one of those meters and hook it up to a disco light and have the disco light change colors to how fast the radiation's working. You know what I mean? One of those LED disco lights, the sort of thing I would probably do. I would feed the sound input into the front, because they have actually an input for the volume, and you can adjust the volume, and then have this disco light spinning in time to the background radiation. Maybe one day I'll do it. Who knows? I might be able to afford all this $50 meters or whatever and set it up and do a video for you guys sometime. Sort of thing I used to do as a kid. Looks like Bob was into that sort of thing too. Close tab. So that brings me to Area 51. And I talked about this in my documentary. Apparently here is S4. It's meant to be in this little corner here, down here near the, what do you call it, the Pascagoula Lake? What's it called? Pascagoose? Something like that. Where's the label? I can't read it. Gets smaller. What's that say? Pascagoose? Pascagoose. I'm not sure how you say it. I suppose I have to overlay the original one. That one there, that will tell us. What's that say? Papoose Lake, which is not really a lake, it's a salt bed. So apparently it's in here when you watch my documentary, round about here, I think it was, on this side, facing that way. I did find some interesting things, but of course we're looking by satellite, not from street view, which is what we need. And even street view, if it's camouflaged properly, you can see we can only get so much detail here. You can see some black shrubs on it and black rocks probably, and water runoff. But can you see hangar doors? Not really. But if you look at World War II bunkers, you're not going to see them even from space, because the doors, the way they were designed was so you couldn't see it from airplanes, like bombers. So what's this bit down here? A little black line here. So area S4 is meant to be there somewhere. And what was interesting about this to me was area 51's up here. So on the other side of the mountain. And if we zoom into this one, they've got some interesting new buildings going up, or runways. And what I found interesting was this area down here. If it stops scrolling away, we've got masses and masses of pile or dirt, which means they're tolerant, they're going underground. And they're dumping, making a mountain here of dirt. And these things here look like they could be going underground. What are they exactly? I don't know. Could that be like on the Thunderbirds when a helicopter or something lands, or whatever, or a UFO lands? Does it simply go underground and slide along, and then a similar thing pops up underground and closes again? You know what I mean? It's a bit hard to explain it. So that's what had my suspicion, that the mounds of dirt there. But this strange thing here is really strange. Funny shape. That again looks like it could be to do with some underground entrance, maybe. Funny road system. Why would you have a road system like that? Doesn't make sense. It looks like a car is there. That shows you how big it is. Looks like a car there, maybe. Although we haven't got enough information. It could be also a little building, but if that's a little building, it just shows how big it is. Here's a bigger building. Could that be cars? Here we go. We've got some cars or something here. Looks like a truck even. It's quite big. Shows how big this project is. So if that's a truck next to the building here, that's like at least 10 trucks wide going around. And then that connects to the main runway system, which is even bigger. There's all the runways. So if a plane lands, it could taxi towards the other section, I guess. Let's see. Oops, gone too far now. So there is an overview better. Looks like it could easy taxi to here, to here, all the way to these other things here, to where the mounds of dirt are, which is right next to the mountain range. So if they've got tunnels underneath all this, quite easily it could connect to the other side where they say S4 is. So to me, that's plausible, even though you can't see it. There's some strange runway shapes. And I don't think it's to do with underground antennas, but it could be. But it's kind of strange, though. What else we got up here? Looks like some more piles of dirt, maybe. Looks like a lot of construction going on. Looks like more dirt dumped. What's that? What's all this? That's strange. It's got a strange shadow there. Is that going into a side of a mountain there? Or a mound of dirt that they've built up? Let's have a look. Does look like something's been made there underground. Maybe hardened with concrete to make it stronger on top from bombs. Because if you look at that, we're talking about little tiny buildings here compared to the size of what's going on here. That looks like an entrance to me, but we're only seeing it from top. If you have a look at underground entrances, they're sort of shaped like a Y, I mean a V shape. Underground tunnel entrance. We'll probably get some German ones. So, what's going on? So there's some of the old ones that we get. So here's the V-shaped entrances that I'm talking about that you get. But obviously their one's a lot bigger because you can compare it to the size of the building. See, it's got these V shapes, comes out here. Still not getting one I'm after though. These are all old designs. See, there's one going into a mountain. Probably need to type USA or something. Some of the new underground bases they got there. Entrance USA. Yeah, that's a pretty long truck there. Does that mean it's got so many trailers or what? Oh no, individual trucks. So let's have a look. It's funny how you can't find it when you want to look for one. I did put a few on episodes over the top, over different periods. So what's this one here? That looks like the same type of entrance I'm talking about. It's got that V shape going on. Where's that one? Camp David. So here, whereabouts was it? Gone off it now. Yeah. So it kind of looks like it's concrete walls either side here, and the entrance is going here. A bit blurry though. The thing is, you don't see mounds of dirt over this other side, I don't think, away from the mountain. It's just all salt bed concrete runways. And we've got this bit here. Oh, look, looks like tunnel entrances again. Just like we were looking at. Two side by side. Square pad in the middle of nowhere. And that looks like mounds of dirt happening here. That looks like mounds of dirt. So definitely digging underground. Anyway, that's probably why they probably wanted to censor the whole thing, probably. What do you think about that? Are you guys still there or not? So yeah, I find it quite interesting myself to look over these things and see if it matches up with the story. So for a standpoint of Bob Lazar, where they're claiming his location where he said it was all flat. See, there's a mountain here, Papoose Mountain. It's right near all this stuff here, which looks like it's got mounds of dirt, like they're tunneling underground. The thing is, they got all this area here they can sort of spray it on the ground so it looks flat rather than having a mound. So you wouldn't know if they were digging underground because they're easy be able to hide it because they've got plenty of ground where they can sort of just spray the dirt on top forever, you know, and just make a road on top of it or whatever. But if they got UFO technology, of course, they can just lift it up in a big, what do you call it, like a crate or cargo container and sort of dump it out to sea somewhere. So yeah, we'll just get rid of that. So that brings me to maybe I'll talk about gravitational waves after. But that brings us to this guy here called Tom Mahood, who's put out a story about Bob Lazar. Hang on, I need a drink. Yes, so China is expanding really quickly, and they're doing a lot of stuff for outer space at the moment. I think that's what's got America worried, is because they could get into space and start mining before America has a chance to even control or stop it. But imagine if they went to one of the moons on one of these planets and found masses and masses of gold. Look how rich they would be. All they had to do was transport it to a space station above Earth and simply drop it out to sea, probably from space and some sort of parachute drop, and just send the spaceship back to get more. So this guy here sort of talks about Bob's story in a way that you haven't heard about it before, which is quite worth a read. I will post the link down the side, but I did post it on my social pages. Did I miss something there? So let's scale up the font a wee bit. I don't think I'm going to read it all out though. I'll just read bits of it. So it basically starts off looking at the Bob Lazar story from a perspective of 2018 by Tom Mahood. I really don't want to be writing this as I have way better things to do. I thought I'd happily left all this crap in my rear view mirror 20 years ago, but apparently not. Recently, I've noticed an increase in number of visitors to my ancient blue fire part of my website coming from UFO sections of Reddit. Seems like they were looking for information on Bob Lazar. Tracking links back from Reddit, I was surprised to find a number of current discussions on Lazar and his veracity. Is that how you say that word? Sadly, there was quite a few posts saying how they believed Lazar's story and he was the real deal. And I'm pretty sure many of those posters were small kids, posters, I mean, not posters, were small kids or not even born when this stuff first went down years ago. So that's his sort of opening there. What else do we need to read of it? First and foremost, I need to touch on the basic science in Lazar's tale. In the world of scientific research, the hardest insult that can be leveled against someone's work is that the person is not even wrong. In other words, the research or theory is so bad it really can't even be discussed coherently. If I was feeling charitable, and I'm not, I suppose Lazar's story might just barely reach the not even wrong level. Now, as someone with a real master's in physics, with a focus on gravitational, no less, which is what he did. Apparently, he worked at as a physicist at LIGO, which was a big array to detect gravitational rays on the planet from outer space. So I'll be covering what he's talking about here in more detail. I could go for many pages pissing all over Lazar's nonsensical tale, but it would have to become very technical, and the Hawkard Lazar believers would not be swayed, so why should I bother? That's how I feel sometimes. So, yeah, it's a good article. Problem though is mainstream science is like a bit of a cult. So, a lot of them believe in the Big Bang Theory, not the TV show, but the actual theory that the universe is expanded and it started from a single point, something from nothing, which doesn't really happen in science. You can't get something from nothing. So gravitational waves also links back into the creation theory of the universe, which again is not provable, and that's sort of fiction, as a lot of people talk about sci-fi, because there's a lot of problems with the Big Bang Theory and why they keep trying to hold on to the idea that the Big Bang Theory is correct by keep adding new mathematics in it, string theory, dark matter, you name it. They try and twist it and mold it so they can keep on with the Big Bang, that God created the universe from a massive explosion which instantly expanded. It didn't take time. It took no time at all to expand the whole universe out 13 billion years or whatever it was, 13.8. So here he goes on to say that this should be quickly easy for anyone to understand, but actually it's not. You still need a wee bit of understanding. Looks like we scared most people off it now, have we? I've only got you again. So recall this Bob Lazar surfaced with his tail well before gravitational wave observations such as LIGO, Virgo, Geo 600 had even been designed, much less operational. if Lazar's sources did indeed operate like he claimed, grabbing distant portions of space-time and pulling it towards them, they would generate enough gravitational waves to knock the observatory's interferometer mirrors off their damn mounts. So what he's saying is, if we had UFOs flying all around Earth at the moment, with the method that he's saying, with the gravitational beams or pulses, with the three things underneath. See if we can find a picture, because he hasn't included the picture. So we need to start breaking it down. Bob, this UFO. I didn't type it wrong. So this is his famous stuff. So what's a good one to look at that's not too hard to see? Pretty much all of them. Just wanted a basic drawing. Oh well, we'll go back up. So this probably this one here, probably. So have a look underneath. They're talking about these three canisters that produce gravitational waves underneath the UFO that can pivot on certain angles, 30 degrees, I guess, to force it upwards and move sideways and so forth. Using element 115 as its energy source to produce the gravitational waves. So that's what he's been saying for a while. So what he's saying is these things, if the UFOs are using gravitational waves in this gravitational wave science theory, because a lot of people still say that gravitational waves is bunk science, which means even Bob Lazar is totally wrong in that case. But they've spent billions of dollars on this LIGO to detect these gravitational waves, and it's so sensitive that even a truck driving along the road a mile away will actually cause a wobbling on the laser beams that they use, and they have to counteract it. So it's that sensitive. So if this was producing massive amounts of gravitational waves flying over or near the detector, it would be going off the scale, is what he's saying. If that makes sense. Are you following? Not too sure. You're not saying much. So so he's grabbing. It would knock the observation info off the mirror's mounts. Okay, maybe a slight exaggeration, but any near-Earth operations of sources described by Lazar would result in huge gravitational wave signals. Wait, unless the observatories are part of the cover-up. So he has a point there, which is quite a valid one, and it sort of blows a hole in his science. Even if it's totally wrong about gravitational waves, means that even the detector that we've built on Earth is wrong, and also the flying saucer concept of how it works is wrong. But I'll talk more about the LIGO after the story, so you can understand what it does. Aside from dealing with Lazar science being absolute rubbish, also need to discuss what those glowing objects seen by many over Groom Lake actually were. They were, as I apparently didn't lay out forcefully enough 20 years ago, the result of the operation of a proton beam device. So I repeat, they were goddamn particle beams. Having said that, I feel much better. So what he's saying is, Whitty took John Lear out into the desert and said they're going to do experiments. You're going to see UFOs. What they're doing is what he's saying. What they were doing at Groom Lake was trying to work out particle beams for disrupting radar, but also maybe as weapons. and when they fire up in the atmosphere, it eventually forms like a plasma ball at the end point and forms these glowing globes that were flying around. A bit like Foo Fighters, maybe even it comes from German science, maybe, who knows. Remember they talked about the Foo Fighters that sort of went through the aircraft, planes flying over World War II. So now you've heard of ball lightning passing through glass windows and hovering over kitchen tables and then vanishing. It's the sort of same concept of energy. So it could have been like a weapon that they were trying to play around with, or some way to knock out radar technology, and not actually UFOs. So that's what he's saying they were really experimenting with in the desert. I'm not too sure how he knows that, but the way he's talking, he talks to a lot of physicists that actually work at Groom Lake, and they had various skill sets. So he sort of put it together that they were working on particle beams. You know, also Tesla talked about particle beams as well, which is kind of interesting. So now I didn't exactly pull the theory out my ass. So here he goes on. Suggested to me that I might want to pay a visit to my university library and look up something called the Bragg curve. In essence, it relates how far charged particles can penetrate into matter given their initial energy. To be honest, my response was, what does this have to do with anything? The result was something along the lines of, okay, moron, pull a certain dusty old physics reference book and look up Bragg curve equations on the page. Follow the instructions, and after staring at equations for 20 minutes, the sky opened and the rain of understanding soaked me. It was truly, oh shit moment. I've often slow, but I get there eventually. After that, the rest was running the numbers. Since then, I had my posting on particle beings at Groom Lake, shall we say, vetted. I've also spoken to people who have seen these glowing orbs of plasma from a distance and very close up. Finally, I had the chance to ask a real particle physicist who worked at Los Alamos, for real, a family friend, if dumping high energy proton beam into the atmosphere would result in the creation of a glowing ball of plasma. He looked at me quizzically for a while and said he supposed it would, but why would anyone want to? And that is the extremely interesting question. Given Groom Lake's primary mission involving radar countermeasures, I suppose he means, and countermeasures, my sense 20 years ago was that they were testing something possibly for use in radar spoofing. However, in fact, it apparently still remains classified today. The important element in the equation of Lazar's Tau suggests maybe its purpose was something else, perhaps an attempt at Star Wars type weapon. In 1980s and 90s, there was many reports in the southwest US of slow-moving, vertically slight, big black triangle craft only seen at night. I've written a bit about these here. I was told by those that know about the stuff that the project's classification continued to this day was due to these craft violating some provisions of weapons treaties the USA had signed. So that's why they're keeping it under wraps. I would speculate that the proton accelerator at Groom Lake generating those flaming balls of plasma 30 years ago might, in a similar manner, also violate some weapon treaties and must there stay severely under wraps. So let me completely clear. The glowing orbs seen in the skies over Groom Lake by Lazar were not craft, they were plasma generated by operation of high-powered proton accelerator dumping its beam into the atmosphere. And Lazar knew this. So apparently Lazar managed to get a job out there as like a maintenance crew for fixing electronics and electrical stuff. And obviously, he would know they would be testing because Lazar has his own particle beam in his own house that he built, which is nothing fancy, but obviously he knew what they were after, and he got some references together and got a job out there. So it kind of makes sense that maybe he was working there, and they verified that with the phone book name and other things, photographs and whatnot. I guess until we see the documentary, we won't really know what comes out. But what he's saying is he knew they were doing testing of this particular system, and he would take his friends out in the desert to watch it. Sort of like he's like the king man saying, "Oh, come and watch some UFOs," and prank everybody and sort of be the man of the group, sort of thing. So he goes on and talks about all that. So what I've seen, much of the argument supporting Lazar's story on Reddit revolves around whatabouts. But by this I mean that posters say that if Lazar's story was true, then how do you explain fill in the blank? Whatabouts? Following isn't a complete list, but covers most of the occur repeatedly. Lazar worked at Los Alamos, showed George Knapp around there, and people seemed to know him. His name was in the phone book. That's what I just said. Los Alamos newspaper story on Lazar and his jet car. Las Vegas security personnel served by others visited Lazar at his home. Lazar was noted by friends and family to disappear as part of a job. He was able to correctly describe certain aspects of the facilities at Groom Lake. Lazar was able to correctly name specific people involved in the security process. Edward Teller appeared to react visibly and uncomfortably when asked about Lazar in an interview. He received a W-2 form from the government. After Lazar's story broke, some media observed possible government surveillance and intimidation. After Lazar went public, persons around Lazar observed what appeared to be vigorous and threatening government attempt to silence him. Lazar knew about Element 115 long before it was synthesized, and so on. So that's most of the claims. Posters bring up some damn good points, he says. How is one to explain all these without being a hidden saucer facility at Papoose Lake? Well, it turns out there is very good reason all these things probably did in fact happen, and why Lazar still holds to his nonsensical story. Spoiler, it's about saving his ass. So he talks about how he took people out there to watch the UFO sightings, and the security guards got to hear about it, and they knew it broke his contract terms that he could go to jail for it. So he decided to make the story even bigger. So if he went to jail, I guess you could say, there you go, I was correct. So they're trying to cover me up, silence me, all that sort of business. So now he's going to get into more details here. This is a really good article that he's written here, but it goes on a bit. What are you saying? Once again, you're stuck with just me. Oh, that's all right. I tend to scare people off. So we're here. We're looking at. We're trying to get out off that mainstream media thing where the news feeds us stuff all the time, which is to brainwash us. We now have to look at what other people are saying, which we don't get to hear about. I bet this guy wasn't interviewed for Corbell's movie, and yet this guy's got plenty to say here, and he goes on, he gives the actual factual links and what he's talking about. So let's just go on a wee bit more. After Lazar got his Los Alamos and set up his photo processing business, he managed to get a limited-term contract job with Kirk Mayer. Kirk Mayer was one of the smaller contractors supplying support staff to Los Alamos lab, such as data entry personnel, machinists, fabricators, and electronic technicians. Kirk Mayer never did provide physicists or positions of that caliber. Lazar had some electronic technical education from Pierce College in Southern California and had some work experience with Fairchild. So he was hired as electronic tech with Kirk Mayer. I have interviews with several people who worked with him, and he was described as very clever, troubleshooter and fix-it guy. He was there often enough to get inside, listed in the landline phone directory with the notion KM next to his name, which was stand for the company he worked for. What was it now? Kirk Mayer. Affiliation of Kirk Mayer. Although the following ad is from the Albuquerque Journal in January 1989, few years after Lazar had left Los Alamos, it probably closely describes Bob Lazar's position at the time. And you can see it's not very clear, but it does say electronic technicians, design and test something, maintenance of vacuum and analytical summit rovers. Yeah, it's pretty blurry. Me, I would have enhanced that and made it bigger. Let's see, can we zoom out? Still not much better, but we'll zoom in. Okay. So microcomputer pass systems, troubleshoot PCs, repair high voltage. So that sort of thing sounds like what Bob would have been doing. I need to go back to that page. So it sounds to me like there is a track of him being there. What have we got? I thought you might have said something. Lazar and his jet car established quite a presence in the small town of Los Alamos, and about a month after arriving, the Los Alamos Monitor newspaper did an article about him. The story described him as a physicist at the lab, but that was in fact only what he told the reporter his position was. Some people who knew him at the time were quite surprised to see that claimed title. I probably should take a small detour to talk about Lazar's jet car. The article focusly first on demystifying it a bit and to show Lazar's genius talent for low-key self-promotion. So what he's saying is even back then, Bob was known to fib and bend the truth. That's what he's saying. So he's talking about here his knowledge of jetpacks and claims. So he's talking about the claims here of the rocket engines, where he's claiming it had so much thrust. When he looks up the catalog and specifications, there's nowhere near what Bob was saying it was, so he was lying. So he goes on a bit here about the rocket engines, and he talks about where you can find it in a magazine or something, I think, somewhere here. So, an amazing display of totally, he's sworn, effed synchronicity. The Los Alamos newspaper article came out on June 27th. 1982, and the very next day, Edward Teller was scheduled to give a lecture at Alamos. Had this not happened, I doubt there ever would have been a Bob Lazar story. I gleefully accept that Lazar came upon Teller reading the newspaper and pointed out the story about Lazar and his jet car. I suppose that impressed the guy. Since the story identified Lazar as a physicist, which he lied about, at the lab, I have no doubt that Lazar chatted up Teller, again a master of low-key self-promotion, trying his best to impress Teller. Let's jump forward to 1985 when Lazar blew out of Los Alamos and relocated in Las Vegas. According to the bankruptcy papers, Lazar filed on 21st July 1986. By the way, 128 pages of amazeballs freely available to anyone who wants to pay. Case BK blah blah blah, Federal Bankruptcy Court. So they've actually got a paper trail for it. 120 pages for a bankruptcy. That's quite a lot, isn't it? He stiffed people right and left before leaving Los Alamos, including family members. So it doesn't sound like a really nice guy if that's the case. Even though when you see him on TV, on these documentaries, it seems that he's a really nice, quiet scientist guy. So Lazar pushed around Las Vegas for the next few years. I have information from good sources that during this time he worked very briefly at Smoky Sam site as part of the Nellis training exercises in the northern reaches of Nellis Range. I suspect he had an inkling of what was going on at Groom, as I was told Lazar made a number of overnight trips circumnavigating the Nellis Range. So what's he saying? He went out there to spy on it? Eventually he discovered E.G. and G's connection with Groom, and also Edward Teller's connection with E.G. and G. So in 1988 he sent Teller a letter. Hey, remember me, the Los Alamos jet car physicist? I have lots of experience with particle accelerators since I worked at Alamos Technical Area 53, the Menson facility, which has a 800 MeV proton accelerator. Do you know of any interest in positions where I might be able to put my experience to use? So he's good at self-promotion for sure. Knowing Teller's strangle background, I don't have a lot of sympathy for the man, but in this case, I feel sorry for the guy. Like so many in Lazar's sphere of influence he had. Maybe it was because he was 80 years old at the time and not a sharp, but perhaps he thought Lazar might be an excellent candidate for the proton beam project and made some calls. Things happen and Lazar gets called in for an interview, and seldom the result of a major bad single decision, but usually a cascading series of unwise choices. Such was the case here. Now it boggles my mind how someone with Lazar's bankruptcy record would be granted any sort of clearance by perhaps it hasn't been immediately unearthed. And maybe Teller passed on a crazy glowing recommendation, and possibly Lazar had a previous Q clearance from Los Alamos. In any case, security guards visit Lazar's home, so that's that story about them paying a visit, and check him out. They decide he's their guy, at least for now, and he's soon on a Janet flight to Groom on a very limited basis doing non-classified grunt work until his clearance is updated. And in any case, if he didn't already fully know, he does now, that they are operating a proton accelerator at Groom. By the way, they usually fire up on Wednesday nights. Sounds like a good time for a party to me. Figuring out another motives is difficult, especially with Lazar. Specifically, I'm speaking of why he has decided to bring his friends out to see a Wednesday night test. It could be that he realized his clearance was going to fail through due to the bankruptcy, or perhaps it was an attempt to prank his friend John Lear, who Lazar often made fun of for his UFO interests. Or maybe Lazar just thought he was smarter than all those security guards at Groom Lake, and no one would ever know. Or it could have been something as simple as wanting to impress his friends. Don't know, but in any case, he brought them out. But here's the important part. Lazar never told his friends' family the truth. They were seeing the efforts of a proton being. Lazar spun his crazy saucer story to them in this mind, thinking that as long as he's violating security, setting aside for the moment that he was bringing visitors to observe classified tests, the people Lazar brought out to see the test become his most ardent supporters and defenders, because hell, he showed them flying saucers and called the days they showed up. That's pretty damn convincing. So I probably have to agree with that. If this is all true, that sort of nails it on the head to me. I don't know what you think about that, John. Right. You may have fallen asleep on me because you've already read it, because I've already sent it around. But I think it needs to be made into a video. That's why I'm doing this. So April 6, 1989, it all comes crashing down. Security discovers our little band of party goers. Bob bolts into the desert. It's starting to sink in that he could be in some serious trouble. He's put the word shit. Lincoln County Sheriff later questions the merrymakers and lets them go, but they had Lazar's ID, and he knew word would quickly get back to Groom. He could be looking at serious jail time. The next day, Lazar is summoned to the Indian Springs airfield, and the full force of Groom Lake security apparatus is directed at him. He now realizes how close to jail he is. The only defense is that he didn't tell his comrades that they were actually seeing, but rather that it was a made-up story of flying saucers. This, of course, doesn't go over well with the security guards, but they are somewhat what's that one? Stimmed. Not sure what that word is. Their choice is: do they prosecute this guy and draw further attention to Groom Lake operations, or just kick him out and intimidate the hell out of him to get him to speak no more? I guess in hindsight, they picked wrong. Unbeknownst to the Groom Lake guys, Lazar's tale to his friends cast him as a hero amongst a hopelessly inefficient secret government bureaucracy. They're rallying around him and support, and baffled him eventually granted interviews to class due to John Lear's urgings. Lazar also have viewed the action as insurance, heightening his profile should Groom Lake come after him. But it required him to fully double down on the alien saucer tale he had wove. Not a bad gig, really. Some minor celebrity attention along with occasional paid interviews, and he maintains it to this day because, well, he has to. It keeps him out of jail. It's certain that feds have a long memory when it comes to Lazar, and would love to get even for him trashing Groom Lake's abilities to run secret operations. So it was him that sort of put Area 51 on the map, wasn't it? So that's what really went down, more or less. No sources, just a really neat proton accelerator and a guy spinning a crazy story to stay out of jail. So that's the true Bob Lazar story, according to this guy. But he goes on and starts giving more information. So as you can see, it's quite long. Lazar's outing of S4 was anything but. So he's not denying S4 isn't real here. Clearly, there's nothing at Papoose Lake, as a number of people have stated since. I know folks who have been there. How, with a good spotting scope, there are even several perches in Mount Cluxton Range which would give a clear view right into the hangar bay doors if they existed. Not that I know anything about that. So he's been out there spying too. Yes, there is a Site 4 associated with the Tonopah test range, tasked primarily with radar issues and nowhere near Papoose. I wrote about this place years ago and it was no secret. Clearly displayed on maps John Lear would have likely had. So, not too sure whether that would be entirely true or not. Whether there could be two S4s, I don't know. It's just called Site 4, isn't it? But this is another interesting part about the W2 form, which is for wages. And when they check it, it comes to a social security number of his dead wife. So has his wife worked for this naval base, and he's sort of modified the paperwork with his name on it? That kind of suggests that that's what's happened. How would you do it back in those days? Photocopy of a photocopy, paste it over, and then photocopy it again without trying to get the lines. It's down here somewhere. So he also talks about element 115, but we'll go to this W2 form, which he talks about a lot. This bogus document. So United States Department of Naval Intelligence, Robert S. Lazar, but they're saying the social security number, which is up here, is it? Related to his dead wife, which is interesting. So let's go to element 115 bit, because that's also interesting where he would have got the information from. I think people should try and get this guy to interview, eh? It would be a good one to talk about Bob Lazar. And I wonder if Dana Law, because he normally gets hold of these type of people and gets them on his show. I don't think they'd come on my show, though. You're talking about something different, not about Bob Lazar. Chemical trail on Thanksgiving Day. I'm pretty sure there's plenty of jets in the sky that's making contrails. If you have a look at a jet engine, it just sucks in air and shoots the hot air out the back. It doesn't sort of add any chemicals on it. It's all pure water vapor. What you can say is the jets have fumes because they burn kerosene. If you're saying that's a chemical, then you might be on the right track. So here he talks about element 15 breakdown. Many people claim that Lazar had inside info about element 115 before it was actually synthesized. Well, no, Lazar's main claim about element 115 was that it was stable, which amazed folks. But here's the thing, that concept is really old news. I have a 1969 article from Scientific America with a cool 3D graph showing an island of stability around 114. This was also repeated in my undergrad physics book. But maybe most interesting is the article Creighton's super heavy elements by Brusher and Munisberg, published in Scientific American, again talking about a potential island of stability around 115. The article's date was May 1989, the same month Lazar began his interview with KLS-TV in Las Vegas. Yeah, probably just to convince her. Consider, how do you say that word? Coincidence. How can I say it? Coincidence. I can say it, but I just can't say it at the moment. Let's see. I used to have a thing here where it could speak it. What is it called? Read aloud. I wonder if that'll work. Let's see if we can hear it. Is it doing something? In fact, I could get it probably to read it all out. Like, is that the one coming up here? No. It used to work. Read aloud. I can't hear it. Maybe I have to unmute it. Let's try again. Looks like that stuffed up. It used to work. It was quite handy when you couldn't pronounce things. Anyway, coincidence is probably what I need to say. Anyway. Oh, and since we're speaking of coincidences, I'm sure that's the case with Lazar and his particle accelerators. When he first surfaced with his story in Las Vegas, media accounts of him were sure to mention that he had a particle accelerator in his bedroom, because that's the mark of a true scientist. That's what Corbell's always been going on about too, isn't it? Later, after the feds busted his Operation Edward, New Mexico, for selling controlled materials, and all the fascinating court documents are now online. Yay! Wired magazine did a piece on Lazar in June of 2006. In it, he has yet another particle being accelerator, which he says he uses to produce a compound for gaseous hydrogen storage. This is pretty far-fetched claim, as the ability to make useful amounts of the compound would take forever with an amateur particle beam accelerator. I wonder what he really might be using those accelerators for. Again, must be a coincidence. Okay, and if you're impressed that someone has their own particle accelerator, you shouldn't. Way back in the early 1960s, Scientific America published an article on how to make a homemade atomic smasher, aka particle accelerator. As a kid, I lusted after the project, but its crux was the need to build a mercury diffusion pump, which sounds pretty dodgy, to achieve the hard vacuum needed in the beam tube. So, beyond the need for a hard vacuum, with pumps now available on eBay, the rest is trivial. But you know why, unless you want to impress others and make plasma balls. At last item for your consideration to determine Lazar's veracity is his academic background. He claims master degrees from both Caltech and MIT in subjects that don't offer, and during time periods he couldn't have physically been at either campus. In response to questions at the Ultimate UFO seminar in Rachel, New York in May of 1993, Lazar was so kind as to offer up the names of two of his instructors at Caltech and MIT, Dr. Luxer and as well as Honsfeld. He even spelt them. Stanton Freeman told me he was searching for Dupla, and no such person ever taught at Caltech or MIT. However, he did find a William Duxler who taught math and physics at a previous mentioned Pierce College, and confirmed to Freeman that Lazar had taken at least one of his courses in 1970s. So he was a high school teacher then, not a professor at Caltech. As for finding Holmesfield, Freeman rolled snaked eyes beyond, confirming no one by that name ever taught at Caltech or MIT. However, did you know that in this amazing 21st century you can buy reprints of all sorts of old high school yearbooks, like, for example, the 1976 yearbook for W. Tresper Clark High School, and if one were to do, one would find that there was a technical and vocational teacher there by the name of Frederick Horsfeld. Looks like he was teaching electronics. Interesting, no? So he named two people from courses that he probably was in. That's what they're saying there. Not university. I've never understood why Lazar clings to these imaginary master degrees when they have been so thoroughly proven to be lies. Lazar's fans would easily accept an explanation of simple resume pattern, but I have to grudgingly concede Lazar has some mighty heavos in his manner. I have read that the probation report submitted to the court when Lazar was busted for pandering in Nevada in 1990. That means he got caught in a prostitution ring. Under oath to the probation agent preparing the report, Lazar continued to claim he had these degrees. Dude, you got some game. As for sources stories, the rest of that just a story told to keep him out of jail, to which he must still firmly cling. So you have to ask yourself, am I going to believe a fantastic story told by someone with a well-established record of exaggeration and deceit, and there is much more plausible explanation for the same events? So there you go. It goes on a bit. But like I said, I posted the link there if you want to go and read it all yourself and do further research on it. So just wondering how much Corbell has addressed any of this. Some will certainly dismiss all the above as say I'm just a debunker or even an agent of the government. They call me that too, out to get Lazar. Far from it, I just happen to place a premium on truth, and folks that waste other people's time annoy me. So this guy's very much like I am. When I first heard Lazar's story many years ago, it sounded plausible. Thus, I do have some empathy and understanding of those that have watched his interviews and swallowed it all. It wasn't until I started looking into his details of his claims that I began to think he might not be telling the truth. Fun fact, my very first investigatory act was to spend time going through Caltech yearbooks to find a passing mention of him, and as I actually expected him to be there, surprised he wasn't there. As for my beliefs, I happen to think that UFOs are quite real phenomenon. I'm not inclined to take any strong position on just precisely what they are, but I read too much and know too many well-connected individuals to dismiss them. And beyond that, I think it's highly likely we are in possession of some sort of stuff from the phenomenon, from crashed recoveries or whatever. Finally, I'm sure there are at least a few very dark government programs dealing with this sort of thing, but Lazar never worked for any of them. To wrap this up, I'd like to leave you a quote reportedly straight from the mouth of Lazar, related to me by someone who once knew him. The more credible the lie, the more people will believe it. That sounds like a Secureteam quote, doesn't it? His quote was, gullible people equals money in the bank, according to people that knew him. That sort of become non-friends anymore. So yeah, that's the whole document there. And he talks about his wife, Carol Lazar, died in Las Vegas in 1986, and that W2 form appears to be hers. So yeah, that was pretty much that. So now I need to talk about what LIG is, because he mentions it. And may possibly wrap it up tonight, because we ain't got too many people watching. Stephen was retired. He is now. Well, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about Bob Lazar, the real story, not the movie. I think maybe some other people fell asleep there. But what's happened? I'm getting a USB disconnect going on. Anyway, I think it's working. So, gravitational waves. Let's see, where to begin. Just get the right document. Come on. So, he talked about LIGO. LIGO is the most largest gravitational wave observatory. It consists of 2 detectors situated 3,000 kilometers apart in an isolated region in the states of Washington. Each L-shaped facility has 2 arms positioned at right angles. So we're showing the picture here. And they fire lasers down them. And if gravitational waves were real and it bends space, it will bend the laser beams and just a wee bit, and they would detect it, basically. Each L-shaped facility has 2 arms positioned at right angles to each other, running 2.5 miles from a central building. Lasers are beamed down each arm and bounced back by mirrors, essentially acting as a ruler for the arm. Sensitive detectors can tell if the length of the arms of the LLG detector varies by as much as little as 1/10,000th of a width of a proton, representing the incredible small scale of effects imparted by passing gravitational waves. LIGO has 2 observatories to act as a check on the other to rule out a potential gravitational single detection is not due to a local terrestrial disturbance. So they're talking about Earth tremor, but still there's problems with that. So I'm going to talk about that. LIGO has 2 observatories. Yep, where did we get to? Speed of light. Both facilities will detect a tiny, true gravitational wave moving at the speed of light nearly simultaneously. Although the twin LIGO facilities act as a single observatory, they are not designed for observing it in conventional sense. Instead of eyes, the facility can be thought more as ears listening to gravitational waves, or even a skin trying to feel the slightest of movements. So in his report about Bob Lazar, he was talking about this interferometer. LIGO's observations are technically known as interferometers, used in many scientific fields. Merge 2 or more sources of light into in order to create a interference pattern. Such patterns result in overlapping waves of light. When the peaks of the two waves of light in overlap, they combine to form a larger peak. So what he was saying about the Bob Lazar story was if the UFOs are using that technology that Bob claims, then these LIGOs would be going off the scales because they'd be able to detect the massive gravitational wave coming down in the atmosphere through the planet. So he says that hasn't happened, so they're not detecting those big, massive pulses coming from the Earth itself because the UFOs are near it. Because they're trying to detect it from outer space here, so they're so sensitive. So it's saying here, there's many things besides gravitational waves that can upset LIGO's sensitive instruments, including vehicles on nearby roads, seismic waves, slight temperature differences, and even a tidal tugging of the sun and moon. Therefore, the experiment designers went to extraordinary lengths to compensate for those mirrored vibrations and forces. So they've only detected what, 4 times now. So yeah, if we had UFOs with gravitational waves flying around the atmosphere all the time, like Bob was saying, or even at Area 51, this thing would be detecting them all the time, and it's not. So conventional science there sort of debunks it, because you just heard in interviews that Corbell saying that people say his science is wrong, but they don't actually prove it. But the theory of the science does debunk it. But the problem I have with gravitational waves is they're sort of linked into the Big Bang myth theory, and they don't exist. I've explained other ways that UFOs will work using Tesla's ideas. So you can go and watch those on other streams. I'm not going to repeat it all again, but yeah, doesn't mean he's right either. But it's good to know about other thinking out there, opposed to what you're being told by mainstream media. So you can see here, there's a few more things about the thing, and it says LIGO's greatest strength is also its greatest weakness, since LIGO is designed to sense the smallest conceivable motions of mirrors caused by the passage of a fleeting gravitational wave. It is also extremely sensitive to all vibrations near, such as trucks driving on nearby roads. So that's how sensitive it is. So what they've done is they've tried to put it on earthquake, what they call it, isolation pads. So they counteract any earthquake wobble and apply a negative to it, like noise cancelling headphones, like he says here. Any small vibrations are cancelled out. But I still have my feeling that they won't be able to cancel out all the movements of the Earth, because the Earth is spinning around at 900 kilometers per hour, and we don't feel it because we're on the surface. And of course, then the Earth is spinning around the Sun also at some ridiculous speed. What was it now? Can't remember now. 1,000 miles per second or something like that. And then we're spinning around on the spiral arm of the galaxy, and then that spot is spinning around the universe. So yeah, you get all that 3D motion stuff happening. I don't know if you can test for even gravitational waves while you're on the planet. It would have to be out in space, I would suspect. Not even orbiting. You want it far enough so it's sort of like not orbiting anything. It's sort of stagnant, is my feeling about the experiment. But also, there's some articles here where they're sort of debunking it all as well. So I'll post that one here. And of course, people are also saying what the problems are with it. LIGO. And I think he's bulleted it here. Non-repeatable, non-verifiable, external pressure to produce results, lack of accuracy, questionable laser isolation, which is what I was talking about, the earthquakes and all that. Questionable mirror isolation, also the same thing about truck movement on the road and stuff. Insufficient mirror tolerances, lack of third-party environmental monitoring, gravitational wave single limitations, which is to detect gravitational waves that transverse perpendicular to them, stretching and compressing the lengths of their long L-shaped arms. However, time difference between the two signals was less than 7 milliseconds. This means the waves would have to travel one parallel to the other detector, which would have made them significantly more difficult to detect. Bias and skewed pattern matching and misleading audio. The LIG team converted the visible pulsation of light that was observed into an audible chirp in an attempt to reinforce their ring-down description of the supposedly merging black holes and the resulting gravitational wave generation. This has misled the public into believing that the media and many so-called science sites into reporting that the actual sound was detected as part of the LIGO team's discovery. This was a complete misdirection. So it must have been on TV or on TV news where they're getting a clip noise when they're reporting that they detected the collision or something. Objects are far beyond detection range. Detection occurred before official observations began. Only one observation in over 4 months. Questionable and lacking follow-up. So this guy really just tears it all apart. So let's see, what ones have I posted? So that's how it works. So I'll post that one. And close that one down. And the problems with it, you can have a read off. But it doesn't stop there. So now they're looking at seismic isolation for advanced LIGO. So it looks like they're building or modifying it, because obviously the first results they've got, they're still questioning whether it was related to the Earth, internal Earth. So I found that there. So they're talking about vacuum tubes, was it? Let's see. Mechanics and function of these platforms has been extensively studied in previous works. Active isolation configuration performance of blah blah blah. So where was a bit? Base design concepts and seismic isolation component of the proposed advanced LIG detector upgrade has been developed. This was this year, I think. Oh no, 2012. That's pretty old, isn't it? I mean 2002, not 12. So it looks like they've been modifying it ever since, you know, trying to get the wobbles out. quantum gravity. So yeah, consists of a two-stage vacuum active isolation platform that's supported by an external hydraulic actuation stage. So I don't know if that's on the current one or they're upgrading it because of that year number there, so I'm not too sure. But I thought I'd include that there. Maybe they're still upgrading and playing around with it then. So what's this one say? Oh yeah, this one about the gravitational waves being a hoax. And this was talking about the detection. Second gravitational wave detected from ancient black hole collision. That's what they were talking about, the chirp sound, I guess. Physics has detected ripples in the fabric of space-time. So as soon as I hear space-time and Big Bang Theory, it sort of straight away throws me off because I've talked about space-time and how it can be interpreted a different way. Was set in motion by a collision of two black holes billions of years ago. The event marks only the second time the scientists have spotted gravitational waves. The tremendous stretching and squeezing of space-time predicted by Einstein more than a century ago. Faint signal received by twin instruments of the Laser Interferometer Gravitational Wave Observatory LIGO in the US revealed two black holes. This confirmation that there's a real population of black holes out there. So what happened? Well, this guy talks about it, the skeptic. So that was the second one, and this would have been the first one that they detected with it from the same Guardian. Gravitational waves, why it's impossible not to be thrilled about the discovery. Firstly, we have seen ripples in space, and the fact that we expected them makes it even more amazing. Fabric of the universe, which is contained in Einstein's general relative, has made yet another valid prediction. In fact, the beautiful elegance of the theory is a little deceptive. So it goes on a bit. So you can see the sort of Einstein fans, and they like the maths. But this guy, so what's he saying? Was the gravitational wave experiment worth a 1.1 billion cost to the taxpayer? Is there any substance to the outlandish claims seen across mainstream media headlines recently about those exclusive gravitational waves supposedly detected? The answer is, of course, no. The detailed rebuttal below proves that the whole thing is yet another money-maker scam courtesy of government-sponsored science. So there's a better picture of the facility with the L-shaped arms. So there's two of those that work together, two facilities. Gravity waves of propaganda. So this guy's saying it's all bunk, which means Bob Lazar's gravitational wave idea is bunk as well, if that's the case. This discovery of gravitational waves has been announced again. In the supposed expose, I was first analyze the mainstream announcements. I will then look at the actual scientific paper showing you how to read it. I have to say this for them, these people never quit. No, if they get caught in one particular lie, they just wait a year and a half and come back with another one. I guess they are relying on the short-term memory of most people, but when I heard this announcement of gravity waves today, I said to myself, didn't they already do this? Didn't we get a huge announcement of gravity waves in 2014, didn't Alan Guth win a $1 million prize for that? In fact, he did. And he, along with Alexei Starbushky and Andre Lindy, won the Calverley Prize in July 2014. So $3 million was allegedly paid out. According to mainstream stories at the time, the proximate cause of these prizes was the discovery of gravitational waves by BICEP-2 on March 17, 2014. Of course, all those stories from 2014 have been rewritten, downplaying the claim of gravity waves and playing up the alleged discovery of cosmic inflation. However, when a few months later, after the publication of my Russian paper of March 18, they had to admit this announcement was only horrible, premature, it was flat wrong. To save face, they claimed the dust in the Milky Way exactly mimicked the signature of gravity waves. This despite having claimed in the peer-reviewed papers in March that they had ruled out and claiming a positive detection at sigma 7. Sigma of 7 indicated that BICEP-2 only emitted a 0.0001% chance that they were wrong. That's 1 in 10 billion. Funny then they had to admit they were wrong only a couple of months later. Strange how it always works out that way. Whether they are claiming faster than light detections, dark matter detections, or whatever. At the time, we were told BICEP bent out their main competitors in the search for gravity waves. The LIGO team, LIGO congratulated the BICEP team for their earth-shattering discovery. Well, it is LIGO's turn now, since they have now claimed a gravity wave detection. Do they have a third team in the wings? I wonder just this one also ends up in ruins. They had better, because I can already tell the whole story is manufactured from nothing. The first clue is that the paper is once again hidden behind 1,000 authors. We saw the same thing with the manufactured Higgs detection, which I believe had more authors than than that. The truth doesn't need such a large bandwidth. But I knew even before the first clue, since I know gravity waves don't exist. I assume all these physicists know it too, but the truth doesn't butter anyone's bread. Einstein knew it. They admit it in articles that Einstein once told the world gravity waves don't exist. They tell you in a flip-flop both times, saying they did exist, but then didn't tell you why Einstein flipped. He flipped under pressure from the mainstream, who didn't like him telling the truth. We see this all the time in the subject. Someone blows the whistle on something big project, and spooks visit him and twist his arm, and suddenly he changes his mind. This is what's happened with Einstein. Gravity waves can't be a vindication of general relativity, as they claim, since in general relativity, gravity is a force. It's just a curved math. It isn't a force, I mean, it's just a curved mass, because he's just a maths guy. Beyond that, according to Einstein, GR isn't mediated by particles, but has no background. In GN, there is no ether, remember? Remember that was Tesla's thing, the ether? Remember Einstein once agreed with Tesla that ether energy level existed, and at the last minute changed it to this relativity thing. So what are gravity waves supposed to be made of? What is it wavering? We get no sensible answer to that today. Physics today is nothing but a huge pile of ever-growing nonsense. Since I know you can't detect something that doesn't exist, I know that this detection is manufactured without further study. So this is what I call Big Bang scientist. He doesn't like him either. Here is all it says concerning that in the announcements, according to the equation, physicists have settled on gravitational waves would compress space in one direction and stretch it in another as they traveled outwards. But according to Einstein, there is no space in that sense. According to the stated postulates of general relativity, space is not something that could be compressed or stretched, since it's neither or an ether nor a physical background of any material sort. For Einstein, space could be curved, and it could be curved simply by applying the tensor calculus to it, which already contained the curves, but the tensor calculus has no mechanism for stretching or compressing space. To say it another way, there is no possible mechanism for gravity to work on space in that way. The theory of gravity waves is outrageous, non-mechanical, and non-physical. So this guy's just blowing gravitational waves out the water. So that sort of blows Bob Lazar's story out of the water too. This is why they used to search for gravitons, although GR also has no use for gravitons, since gravity as curved space does not require a meditating particle. The mainstream used to look for gravitons because they knew they needed them to sell this gravity wave nonsense in compressed space. You need something in space to compress. With gravitons, you can say that individual gravitons are getting nearer, indicating compression. Compression is then a function of particle densities, but it is compressing space, but has no physical meaning. You can't compress a vacuum because there is nothing to respond to pressure, and it is words without physical content. In the latest announcements, we are told mirrors in the arms of LIGO moved 0.004 the diameter of a proton, indicating that two black holes were colliding somewhere in the distance. Where? Why aren't we aren't told? We are only told that two of them were 36 times as massive as the Sun, and other 29 times as massive. In the collision, 3 solar masses were released. Where did they get those numbers? They just made them up out of thin air? Okay, but what indication, let's scroll in. Do we have movement of the mirrors which was caused by that rather than anything else? The signal confirmed precisely the prediction of general relativity for black holes as calculated in computer simulation, Dr. Ritzy said. Really? That's all we get? We can see why I now think that this is all a joke. These people don't even try to fake the science method anymore. In the method, you would have to cross off all the other courses of that tiny motion. He's talking about internal earth forces, of course, and maybe even air pressure wave coming down. Or something else we don't know. Since you can't possibly do that in this case, assigning the motion to hypothetical black holes is just a farce. At The Guardian, it says the finding completed the scientific arc of prediction, discovery, and confirmation. First, they calculated what they should be able to detect, then decided what the evidence should look like, and then devised the experiment that clinched the matter. Which is not on Thursday. Scientists around the world were able to call the announcement as yet another confirmation of their standard model of cosmos and the beginning of a new era of discovery. They missed something there, didn't they? This isn't the arc of science, is it? It is missing a couple of important steps. After deciding what was evidence might look like, they should be required to show that the evidence they have found is coming from the source they claim. They have utterly failed to do that. There is zero evidence this came from a collision of black holes. They don't even try to point to the black hole that was allegedly formed. So, to start with, how could you possibly damp this machine from all other tiny wiggles? LIGO's antenna are 2.5 miles long. So in the first instance, it should act like a gigantic sizer monitor, reacting to every least motion on the surface of the planet from whatever course. Since you can't possibly damp it from that, you would have to monitor seismic activity in another way and subtract it out. Could you do that down to the level of a proton? He says, no, you can't. But even if you could, you would be against the infinitude of other problems. What about the charge field of the Earth? Even if you don't believe in the charge field, I can get you there by just renaming it heat. You don't believe in heat of the Earth? Well, the heat emitted by the Earth varies over time and place. So again, you would never love and light would either have to damp or subtract out. LIGO's antennas are L-shaped with perpendicular arms. So he's going through here pretty well, debating it to pieces. So I won't read out any more of it. Let's see. But it's a good article. Probably scared most of you off. Oh, we've still got 3 watching. So yeah. So reading all these science papers and stuff, it's sort of blown a hole straight in Bob Lazar's story of science. And we haven't even looked at Element 115, but I have done it in that S4V Investigated documentary, if you've not seen it. So, Gravitational Waves Debunked. So when you have people doing interviews online with Richard Dolan called Gore Powell saying these people don't know what they're talking about. He's talking about gravitational waves and all that in the interview. Clearly, he hasn't read some of the stuff I have just read out. That's not how you spell it, is it? Gravitational. But if you read that, if you were here for the first part of the Bob Lazar story, that guy said if LIGO was actually working, it would be detecting what was going on at Area 51 with the gravitational craft, because it's that sensitive. So he says that blows a hole straight in the way in Bob's story, but this guy is saying there's no such thing as gravitational waves, full stop. So that blows another 2 holes in that debate of it. Yeah, and if you have a look here, they talk about this bicep 2, which will be probably time for me to wrap up on this actually. And I'll just read this bit out here where they talk about detecting it and then they realized they made a mistake. Whereabouts was the bit? Cosmologists believe that when the universe was young, a mere 10 minus 35 after the Big Bang. So as soon as we start to hear about the Big Bang, it underwent a period of extreme rapid expansion known as inflation, blah, blah, blah. In March last year, BICEP scientists claimed success, saying they had found measured primordial beam modes with statistical certainty of 7, whatever that thing is, well above 5Q, gold standard for discovery in physics. However, doubts soon crept in, especially about how the team had handled the effect of galactic dust on the results. Also, the BICEP measurements used in the 2014 analysis were made at just one frequency of 150 kilohertz. For a signal to be truly cosmological in nature, it must be cross-checked at multiple frequency. When the most recent dust maps from Planck were released in September last year, it became apparent that the polarized emission from the dust is much more significant over the entire sky than BICEP 2 had allowed for. So yeah, they made errors and then made a conclusion that was based on an error. So that was another experiment they did at Antarctica, was it? And they stuffed it up. And of course, they, like he said in that skeptical review, that they actually won prizes. So what's happened? I want to cut and paste that story. So if you can have a read of it. Hell bells. And I'll wrap up for the night because my tongue's a bit swollen for some reason. I think I bit it in the night. Now, who's out there? Anybody out there? I see there's one watching still. So what do you think about what I've talked about tonight? Any last say? Any last comments? I will probably look at more UFO videos next time and analyze them. We've got what, Monday, Tuesday to look at more stuff to talk about next live stream. But I think after reading all that tonight, I think Bob Lazar has sort of been totally destroyed. And as they said in the article, that it was a prank of his that got out of hand, where he was watching another experiment that he knew about that the Groom Lake were doing to create plasma balls from beam weapons or beam energy beams or whatever. And the story just got bigger and bigger. So he would stay out of jail pretty much. So yeah. So I'm just going to wrap up there, guys. Thanks for joining us, and hopefully the guys watch this offline that missed it. And I'll just play the end credits, and do like and share.